Hey there, massage therapists, body workers, members of our support community. I want to have a chat today about creating passive income, especially when you're in a business that is almost the exact opposite of passive income, right? Hands-on body work, being paid for the time you actually spend with clients on the table, one-on-one, is sort of the complete opposite of what people mean when they say passive income in inverted commas. Now, to start with, there are some pretty normal ways that people, like normal, as in the generally accepted ways of creating things like passive income, mean things where you don't have to do active work in order to get paid. So people will say things like, oh, I sell stuff while I sleep, I'm relaxing on this desert island, making tens of thousands of dollars a day, all that kind of stuff. Now, there are ways that you can get towards that ideal as a massage therapist, but it's something where if you can imagine the actual practice of massage is not something that can ever be that passive. So what I'm going to talk about in this, I can see a bunch of people coming on live. Great to have you here. If you're on the recording, still comment, that kind of stuff. But what I'm going to talk about here are a bunch of ways that you can move towards that ideal as much as possible and create some things that look a lot like passive income. And I want to start by just saying that even passive income always requires some valuable thing, right? So you can't just get money for nothing. That's not how selling things works. It's not how the world works. We want to provide people with value. But the difference between massage, what you might normally do as a startup or a solo practitioner, the difference between that and creating passive income is exactly what it is that you're giving value to people with, what it is you're selling, essentially. And most people in massage, you go to school, you study a whole lot of hands-on work, and it's pretty easy to get involved in that world and understand what it is and focus a lot on the modality. So when it comes to what you sell, you say, well, I sell massage. And if you go a step deeper, you look beneath the surface of that iceberg, then of course you're selling things like health and well-being or recovery or long-term benefits, all these kind of things. But the way that you deliver that benefit is still primarily, at the start anyway, through that hands-on treatment. Now this is not passive income at all. It's the complete opposite because you're giving your skills per time. It's like when someone is there for a 1 hour treatment, you get paid for that 1 hour. Once they leave, no more pay. And so that's kind of the general sort of accepted wisdom of how that works. Luckily, there are some things you can do to maximize your income from that, and then some other things we can do as well that will create a kind of passive income or a way of being able to get closer to that. Now, the first thing is if we just look at what you actually do, the hands-on stuff, there are ways of maximizing your impact that can get you extra income that's a bit more passive. And these are things like selling products. A product is not completely passive because you have to be there to sell them the product, but if you have clients anyway and they're coming in, selling products, getting really good at that can add to your income in a passive-ish kind of way. There's also things like having staff. Having staff is another thing that's not really that passive, but it starts to scale your impact. So imagine you do this all day and then you hire maybe down the track you've got a whole team of people that are doing treatments for you or with you as part of a team. Now obviously they're not passive, they're doing the work, they're doing hands-on, but you as a manager, as an employer, you are taking on board risk, you're developing training, you're putting out the marketing to get all those things. There is work there. But once that system is set up, it's more passive, it's scaled. You're not getting paid just for 1 hour, you get one pay. You're suddenly able to do the bit of work that you need to do, you create the system, and it's like having an extra gear on a bike. You still might be working, but you get way more results out of what it is that you're doing. And we see this all the time when we help people to hire. It's like you might earn just as much as you do personally, if you're still working yourself in the treatment room. Maybe you get to double that income, but the time that you spend in that extra component, the doubling, is far, far less. It'll be like 1/10 of the time, and you can create the same income as what you do working full-time yourself. That kind of stuff can happen. So it's not exactly passive. You're still doing the work, but you're getting paid way more because of the system you've created around it. So that's an option. Still not 100% passive though, but you can see we're getting closer. We're getting more and more scaled as we go. The next thing I want to mention is not just staff, but imagine having something like equipment in your space, if you have a space. So things like infrared saunas or float tanks or other kind of equipment that people might be able to use. Depending on what kind of therapist you are, there might be specialized things you can do if you're in recovery and that kind of stuff versus relaxation, all sorts of different things are available. But if you can imagine, you don't actually even need staff or not qualified staff to be able to give your clients access to those kind of things. You have an asset there, so it's not like you're doing nothing. You have paid to get that machine or that piece of equipment. But then it's much easier to hook up your clients to use that, especially if it is something like a sauna or whatever that doesn't need a lot of attention. People can use that and you're not doing as much work. In fact, you can often hire a fairly basic admin style receptionist to be able to train them to do that kind of stuff. No super qualifications needed. So it's much easier to be leveraged and scale using those kind of things. It still requires you to have some investment at the start. You've got to have the space for a start. You've got to have the money to buy those things. But we're starting to see some of that scale possible. And there's one more thing I want to look at that is, we're sort of moving further and further from just you working solo, moving down the track and looking at different ways that we can create that passive income or the idea of more income for less work. And the final thing along that track is really where we start to create our own information products and sell them. So if you imagine selling a physical product, you don't have to make the product, but you've got to really be there to sell it. But an information product is something that we can sell online, essentially. And information products can be things like books or courses, or they can be full-on experiences like challenges or guided programs that might go for weeks and weeks or 12 months even. Like they can look like all sorts of different things. The value can be quite simple. Maybe you sell a $5 ebook that solves some very simple problem, or you can go very, very deep and very specific and have a bunch of sort of training and guidance around a larger outcome. And of course, you can charge then way more for that because people will love it. The thing with those kind of online programs is there's still a lot of work to do, but the work is all sort of front loaded. You create the program, you write the book, you set up a website or whatever it might be, and then you've got to work on sort of marketing and sales. But once those are systemized and you've got a system for being able to do that, you can sell that same product over and over again, and the time you spend actually working with people delivering it is very low. Even if the program has a live component, you're usually getting paid for the entire value of the whole program. The live component is just one small piece. So you might do some work one-on-one with people, but you're getting paid for a whole lot more than just that. So we're scaling our time very, very effectively. Now, one of the challenges that happens is that massage therapists will say, that sounds great, James. Ebooks, yeah, I'll create a course. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a course that costs a few $1,000s? But I'm just a massage therapist. This is the thing that some people will say. Now, it can be different. If you've been in the industry for ages, you might actually be looking at it going, you know what, I'm feeling that I'm ready to step over that hurdle into a more authoritative space. I've developed some skills and I want to teach people like my clients, or I've even developed some skills and I want to start mentoring and working with other people in this industry and pass on some of this knowledge. Both of those are really natural and great places to get to as you advance your career. Even if you're at the start or you're not quite at that place yet, there are still things that you can do and teach and train your clients or people like your clients based purely on the knowledge and experience you've already got. If you have been trained as a therapist or some kind of bodyworker or basically anything, you've already completed a piece of training that you probably paid thousands of dollars for that has given you a certain set of skills. Now imagine you can just look at an intersection of where do those skills match a certain type of person that I might want to work with, a certain type of niche, if you can follow the way that marketers think. And so you might say, well, I studied massage, I did all this stuff, and I happen to be a long distance runner. So I'm going to look at what have I learned, what have I picked up in my experience and training that can help long distance runners. And I'm going to put it into a nice, neat little course that is very specific, how to prepare for a marathon in 12 weeks using XYZ. And I can sell that course quite specifically and put a price tag on it because it solves a very real, immediate problem for people who want to go through that process. And it's using knowledge that you've already got. You don't need to do a whole lot of deep research. You're not writing a thesis here for other academics to read. You're helping people just like your clients, just the same way you do hands-on, but you're doing it in a different way. You're using knowledge and experience. You're creating a space for those people to journey and do things for themselves that will change the game for them. So have a think about that. I've gone through a bunch. There's at least 4 or 5 there, different ways of creating more income with less time and maybe working towards that goal of truly passive income as you move forward. And I would love it if you're looking at this now thinking, this is the one that really suits me. I'd love it if you could pop it in the comments there and let us know. Are you doing some of these already? Are you already hiring? You're already using equipment? Do you sell heaps of product and find that works really well for you? Have you created a mini course or something much bigger yet? We've got a bunch of clients that obviously come to us for training on how to do these things as well. So if you feel that you are at that stage where you're like, oh, I can see, I'm looking over the top here at that kind of stuff, and I'm like, that looks pretty good. I'd love to know more about how to actually go through that process, or I've got some questions. Of course, reach out. That's what we're here for. Happy to catch up one-on-one and just have a chat about what that could look like for you and see if or how what we do can help. But either way, drop in a comment there. Let us know what you're doing already or what it is that you might be interested in. And I'd love to catch up with you soon. Thanks, guys.